we're trying to slowly expand parts of the house that Pippa can have access to when we're gone. Today was the bedroom, and I guess she found a pillow.
Oh.
That's what happens when you let a dog beyond the wall. The wall being that little plastic fence that you use.
Yeah.
Well,
Which does kind of act like the wall for her because she's scared of it, right?
yeah, well, she's doing better now, actually.
Yeah.
But, oh, man. That's funny.
What
I
you
wonder
gotta
she
do-
actually destroyed.
Is create like a system where all of the social deviants in the society have to go to your house to defend that wall
Mm-hmm.
if Pippa ever should want to,
Yeah.
want to venture elsewhere in the house
Oh, man.
and
Man, I had a good
prevent the destruction.
I had a good preamble for today, but now I can't
Oh.
remember what it is.
Was it about Pippa beyond the wall?
No, it wasn't about Pippa. I was like, oh, there's something cool we could talk about, but now I don't remember what it is.
Gotta start writing these things down.
I know I
Yeah.
should have. I wrote the news out and everything. But now I can't remember what it was. I'm going to remember it like as soon as we finish this.
I wonder if anyone filled out our poll.
Oh, yeah.
Oh. Do you,
Maybe
do
like
you want me
3
to look?
people?
5 were up, and the leading one was Views from the 7.
Oh,
was
yeah.
a big fan of that one
I was a big
personally.
fan of that one.
And I noticed
Yeah.
there's a Drake song where he says Game of Thrones, and Joyce says you can use up to 30 seconds of a song, and that's considered
A sample.
a sample.
Yeah.
As long as I think we have to review it. I don't know.
No, we can make a little. So I think we can create. Well, I think we should test it anyway.
For
to see.
sure.
I actually know this rule because I had to go through SOCAN last year for work,
There you go.
and that's what I found out.
I might be able to even whip up a little Photoshop. But there's that promotional photo from Views from the 6th, the album, or Views, as it is more commonly known,
Oh.
where Drake's like leaning on the side of the building in the fur coat.
Yeah, we gotta
Put
get
like a
that.
little Jon Snow face on there.
Or like against the wall.
Yeah, that's perfect. You can all look forward to that on future episodes of the Watchmen podcast.
Yeah. And for this one, we're going to be talking about Game of Thrones Season 7 premiere.
Yeah, we were Game of Thrones, then Spider-Man Homecoming, back to Game of Thrones.
The whole episode is our views from the 7.
Yes.
So
For anyone not listening to Views from the 7, I think that's our segment. Because
Yeah.
we're going to, every episode now for the next 6 more weeks. We're
however
gonna- yeah.
many. Yeah.
Every
we are going to
every
have a
episode.
dedicated segment
Yeah.
to Game of Thrones, which we will call, as according to the law of polls,
Yeah.
views from the 7
Yeah,
kingdoms.
cool. Views from the 7.
I'm
Bracket.
just pulling
Kingdoms
up the
bracket.
poll.
Was it Drake? Well, I hope it won.
It did.
Good.
Yes.
There we go.
It did.
Now, well, confirmed on the episode, and no one can go back and fix the poll now if you really wanted keeping up with the target. No one wanted the White Walker weather report, I noticed. Which is fair. So yeah, we'll talk about Game of Thrones Season 7 premiere, and we'll give our theories about where it's going to go, and it'll be fun to track it as the season goes. But before we do that, let's do the news.
Please listen carefully.
George Romero, legendary horror director and satirist, died last Sunday after a prolonged struggle with cancer. Romero is known for his work on films such as Night of the Living Dead and is considered to be the father of the modern zombie genre. Everything from The Walking Dead to World War Z to Shaun of the Dead owes a debt to Romero, particularly, of course, Shaun of the Dead, as Romero also did Dawn of the Dead. For better or for worse, Romero was 77. And it's funny because I saw that Robert Kirkman had a touching tribute or
Right.
whatever, even though George Romero openly said he did not like Walking Dead because Walking Dead wasn't actually about anything.
Right.
He preferred zombie movies to be a metaphor for something.
Yeah, Romero, everyone should go back and rewatch the original Dawn of the Dead
Mm-hmm.
or Day of the Dead. They're interesting films.
Yeah.
They were pretty progressive at the time. And
Not
he
the
really,
Zack Snyder remake.
No, he really kind of took that low budget cult phenomenon. He created that in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And he created a whole genre that a lot of the discussion around his death is that, for all of the great ideas he came up with, he never was given royalties for any of this.
Mm-hmm.
He created the rules for the modern zombie, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Shoot it in the head, bites, all
Before
that stuff.
before him, they were like, it was like a curse from a Haitian witch doctor.
Something like that.
That's the old white zombie narrative.
So,
Kudos.
thank you so much, George
Maybe
Romero.
maybe we'll go back and review one day. We have a lot. We have a lot coming up. So
Sure do.
who knows? Moving on. Now that The Book of Henry is a definitive flop, people are starting to freak out about Colin Trevorrow directing Star Wars Episode 9 because it seems he might actually be really bad at making movies. Trevorrow got his big break after the small success of indie film Safety Not Guaranteed. Have either of you seen that one?
Never saw that movie.
I saw that. It's fine. Somehow that catapulted him into directing Sam's favorite Jurassic World and eventually Star Wars. In between the two, he did The Book of Henry. The problem is, of all his movies since Safety Guaranteed, they've all been bad, and that has people worrying that, maybe hoping that he will be pulled from Star Wars. That's the dream anyway, because they're worried it will be bad too. But you know who's not worried? Colin Trevorrow. Presumably, this is because he's had incredible fortune to direct huge movies with little experience or success. Here's what he's had to say. Not only did I grow up on these stories, but I think that the values of Star Wars are values that I hold close and very dear in my life. I feel that the message of the way the Force teaches you to treat other people and show respect for others, and the way it guides you through life, is really important to me. His quote is a bit troubling, though, because A, the values of Star Wars are either simplistic, i.e. there is a clear good and evil, and life is a struggle between the two, or murky, i.e. some people are good, and then they become bad, and then they become good again at the last second, and along the way they learn some things about sand. And B, the Force doesn't teach people anything. That's the task of the religious groups centered around the Force, such as the Jedi and the Sith, and by the way, one of those groups is not good at all. So, there you go, people. The dude directing Star Wars Episode 9 doesn't even understand the basic things about Star Wars.
I'll just say, I can't remember if I said this on the last episode, but I'd love to say it again. I rewatched Jurassic World and it was terrible. I hate that movie so much. It is
Why
not good.
did you rewatch it?
To just make sure that it was terrible.
Oh.
I was like,
Confirmed.
was I wrong? Was I wrong? And I think that's one that it was a huge hit when it came out, right? And it was like $1 billion film. And it got good, it was like 70-some% on Rotten Tomatoes. It was fairly warmly received. I think if people went back and saw it, they would be like, wow, the nostalgia factor played into a lot of positivity for that movie.
You know, there were a few things that I just couldn't look past, even though this is a movie about dinosaurs and mutated dinosaurs where you should just be able to look past everything. I mean, I enjoyed Chris Pratt in it, but the fact that, is it Bryce Dallas Howard, could outrun the T-Rex is just ridiculous. Or the fact that,
but she's in high heels.
And she's, yes, they do make you faster.
Yes.
And
she meant business.
And even the part where like the whole movie could have been avoided if she just stayed in the pen and used her cell phone to call the main command rather than like drive there while calling them.
Yeah.
You know? Like anyway,
like that.
I know this is not about Jurassic World, but
yeah, I'm sure we have many plot holes and criticisms awaiting us for Star Wars Episode 9.
Yeah.
Colin Trevorrow. That movie, his most recent one, the whatever Book of Henry. Yeah. I can't remember the synopsis or the plot of that movie offhand, but it's apparently very ridiculous.
Yes, definitely. Well, anyway, moving on. Last week we noted that Disney was struggling to find an actor to play Aladdin for Guy Ritchie's live-action production. Well, it seems the problem is over. Disney scoured the earth all the way to exotic Markham, Ontario to cast Canadian actor Mina Musad, I'm probably pronouncing that name wrong and I apologize, as the singing, dancing street urchin prince. Musad was born in Egypt, I should note, but moved to Canada at a young age. He's appeared in only a few films, but is mostly an unknown, just as Joyce said they were looking for. So there you go, they did it. They found a not-white person.
I would like to say
amazing
that after you made the joke about they couldn't find anyone, and so they just got Matt Damon.
Oh yeah,
I saw many memes about that, and I was like, Matt was right on that, on the culture curve with that one.
It was just the first thing that came to my mind. Should have said Ben Affleck. Oh well. Speaking of Ben Affleck, now that the latest Planet of the Apes movie is done and in theaters, director Matt Reeves has turned his attention firmly to The Batman. His first move? Dumping Ben Affleck's script.
Right in the garbage.
Reeves said that the movie will have an entirely new story, which also casts doubts on whether or not it will still feature Deathstroke, canonical sex offender and original Deadpool, as the main villain. The news has been great for quippy movie journalists, though, who made every Batman Boston joke you can possibly think of. Wicked. And it's like, oh, there goes that plot line where Batman asks Joker how his mother is, and they meet at Harvard in the parking lot.
Yeah, I don't know. Matt Reeves, I mean, I'm going to go see War of the Planet of the Apes. Apparently, it's very good if you can get over CGI monkeys riding horses, which I don't know if I can, to be honest. So we'll see. But I feel like for what Batman's going to be, I think it's in pretty decent hands with Matt Reeves, to be honest. And I'm glad he took Ben Affleck's script and threw it away.
Well, I think it's I haven't seen any of the other. I've seen the first Planet of the Apes, so I'm like, do I need to
Rise
watch
of the Planet of the Apes?
the one with
Charlton Heston?
no, no, the one was
Oh,
Charlton.
Mark Wahlberg.
No, the very first Planet of the Apes had James Franco.
Oh, that one.
Oh.
Yeah, Rise of the Planet of the
Yeah,
Apes.
is that Rise? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the only one I've seen. So I feel like maybe I'm out of touch now.
I thought Ben Affleck was a decent screenwriter.
Oh yeah, he
Yeah,
wrote
at times.
Fargo,
Okay.
and
But like,
it's funny.
This
though.
whole the DC universe was really in shambles at that point. So hopefully this goes well for everyone.
Anyway, moving on. Quentin Tarantino, director known for his movies about violence and murder in stylized time period, has announced the subject of his next movie about violence and murder in a stylized time period, The Manson Family Murders. The Manson family was a cult/quasi-commune that arose in California in the late 60s and was led by Charles Manson. The group was responsible for several murders, including famously actress Sharon Tate and 4 others on August 9th, 1969. With ties to music and Hollywood, Manson is actually a pretty ideal subject for Tarantino. So big names are reportedly being considered for this movie, including Brad Pitt and Jennifer Lawrence. The movie obviously has no release date yet. Jennifer Lawrence was they thought she might be in The Hateful Eight, the role that well, there's only one woman in Hateful Eight.
Jennifer Leigh.
Jennifer, yeah, I know who you're talking about. I just can't remember her name either. So
Yeah.
Brad Pitt makes sense because he's been in Tarantino movies.
I'll add other names to those that I've heard
Margot
circling
Robbie.
this. Margot Robbie
Really?
for Sharon Tate. But most importantly, Shia LaBeouf
What?
for Manson.
Oh no.
It would be his Travolta.
Why not?
It would be.
Yeah.
And he's worked with
Apparently-
Brad Pitt before on Fury.
Oh.
Well,
Really.
there you go.
And
Fury.
and Brad Pitt
That's
was
true.
Apparently a mentor figure to him on that
interesting.
set, which I don't even know if that really.
Apparently, Sharon Tate's family member is lobbying for Margot Robbie, and she said, "It's not that Jennifer Lawrence isn't pretty, but I mean, I have my standards."
Wow.
Man. All
I
right.
think this is. I'm interested. Definitely interested.
Yeah, me
It's a
too.
good. It's actually, as I said, it's a good fit for Tarantino.
Yeah.
The early reviews are in for Dunkirk, which will probably be out by the time you hear this recording. They're all in, and critics love it. I
Yep.
think it's one of Nolan's best. It's currently sitting at 97% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Wow.
High 90s for sure. Yeah.
As we mentioned last week, it is playing Inglorious 70 millimeter here in Edmonton at the West Edmonton Mall,
Yeah. Everyone take an opportunity to really
the IMAX.
see it in IMAX on film. That's crazy that
Yeah.
we get that.
We'll probably review it for next week.
Yeah.
Nice.
They're saying it's definitely one of the best of the year. It's emotional and huge in scope and scale, a true blockbuster, all that good stuff that you
Yeah.
want.
They usually say those things, right, about World War II movies.
I suppose, but I don't know. There hasn't been one that's been widely critically loved in a little while. So
That's true. I can't think of a big.
Fury was the last that I can really remember.
There
and that
was that art one with George
oh
Clooney.
god, the Monuments Men, and that
That's
was just
right.
dismal.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there you go.
All right, let's go on to Game of Thrones. So, Game of Thrones finally back. Were you
Back again.
when you saw all the flashbacks and then the trailer? Were you, or like the theme music? I guess. Were you excited? Were you ready to go?
I was, of course. I mean, I think last season kind of set things back to a square one. So it was almost like starting all over again in some ways. A lot of things were resolved at the end of season 6, obviously. So we're into the final chapter of the Game of Thrones that we've known and loved for so many years now. So it was very exciting.
I think this is the first season of Game of Thrones where I don't know anything that's going to happen. And it's a bit of a stressful watching for me because I don't have the reader's knowledge anymore.
Right. There might be some lingering threads with like Euron Greyjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, I read that.
We should also know. Sorry, we spoil everything. I don't know why you would listen to an episode entitled Game of Thrones season 7 premiere without thinking it'd be spoiled. But that's your warning.
You're going to
carry on. Carry on, Joyce.
I read that they're going to bring some plot lines back from the Feast for Crows.
Yeah.
Into it, and it kind of looks like, I mean, we'll get into this more a little later, but it kind of looks like Arya might be playing out Lady Stoneheart's storylines.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. I'm curious to hear what that means because I never read the books, obviously.
Yeah, so
let's just sort of go through what happened in this episode, and then we can give maybe a higher level look at our thoughts and our theories going forward. So, I mean, it starts off with probably the boldest part of the episode.
Yes.
Which was... it looked at first like maybe a flashback of old Walder Frey having a feast with his family. But then when the serving girls start bringing out those drinks, I was like, oh, man, this is Arya using the faces.
See, I felt immediately dumb because I was with the group I was watching with. I was the one who did not see what was coming from a mile away.
Oh.
Like my brain was like, that wine's poison. I was like, why is Walder Frey poisoning that wine?
Oh.
I was like, oh, and then my sister's like, oh, I see what's going on here, and I was like, what do you mean? Yeah. She's like, well, Arya, and then it was Arya, and I was like, oh, God, I'm dumb.
An immediate because I didn't even consider it to be a flashback. So the second you saw Walder Frey, I thought he's dead. It's Arya.
Yeah, see, I was totally sucked into flashback. So I was like, maybe it was because I saw like right before the episode started, there was like a last time.
It was
on
a
Game of Thrones,
very
and there was
long last time.
A lot of stuff to fill you back in, and they just showed Walder Frey and the sun pies and everything, and I was like, we're going back before. Interesting. But no.
Anyway,
Arya
has now murdered every Frey. There are no Freys left, and there were a lot of them, except for some women.
Yeah.
They're still around.
The wives, but they were mostly
if they're not pregnant.
I mean, the house is done. At least for the
dead and gone.
And meanwhile, in the north, Jon is like, we need to find all the dragon glass we can, and we need to teach everyone to fight, even the women. And then when I think it was Umber was like, no, and then Lady Mormont was like, I'll fight you.
I'll fight you right now. I'm training everyone, and stole the scene, of course.
But importantly, from that moment was the tension that existed between Jon and Sansa, because Jon refused to punish the families of the Boltons and the Karstarks.
It's Umbers and Karstarks.
Sorry, who had rebelled against the Starks. It's like, we got to let the families go. And Sansa was like, no, you should hand them over to new houses. And he was like, my word's final.
I totally love that. It just makes so much sense for what the characters have been through, that this is how their mindset is. It's like, wow, it's nice to just really understand a character, and in this case too, knowing what they went through and seeing Jon really wanting to follow in the footsteps of the man that he looked up to so much, being Ned Stark, and his I guess it would have been his uncle in actual reality, but his dad in
he wouldn't,
so far as he knows.
Yeah.
But then with Sansa on the other end, not wanting Jon and herself, or specifically Jon, to make the same mistakes, and because everyone, her brother, her dad, all lost their heads because they were so stubbornly Stark. So it's interesting, and I think those characters they make so much sense, which I love.
That's what I appreciated about that conversation between Sansa and Jon, where she started winning, in quotation marks, when she stopped being like a Stark.
Yeah. Right?
And she's correct in that both Robb and Ned died because of their honor. And I think that while Jon is still holding on to that honor, she just realizes how fruitless it is.
Yeah.
And I think it makes it all the more sad because it's Game of Thrones. So, one side here, will be like an I told you so side.
Yeah.
But both make such compelling kind of arguments for why you should be one way or the other that you're like, can't you both just be right?
And I thought it was fitting
no.
that Jon would be like, Jon was somebody who was never really treated well because of where he came from. Like, he shouldn't be punished. Basically, Kat hated him because he was a bastard, and that wasn't his fault. And so I thought it was fitting that he wouldn't want to punish people for the sins of their father.
Yeah.
And then Sansa is like, I went, over the past couple of years, I've been to Cersei Lannister business school, get my degree in how to manage a
leadership
kingdom.
College.
Yeah, that's right. Still more popular. Anyway, so I thought it was fitting for her as well, and it's an interesting tension that will I think play out throughout the season, and obviously Littlefinger in the background.
Yeah. But just speaking of tension, I was just going to say it's also, I think you can't help but sort of sympathize with Jon because there is that like dramatic irony of he's seen the White Walkers, we've seen the White Walkers and the Whites and their power, and being like, yeah, you really should band everyone together. Like there's no more room for playing this stupid Game of Thrones. Everyone needs to get on the same page and be like, we're going to fight this war against this ultimate enemy.
Yeah.
But, Sansa's still playing, she wants to win the Game of Thrones, and he's more like, I'm thinking the final battle for all man. So that's where me, I'm obsessed with that White Walker side of the story. So I'm like, Jon, you gotta figure out a way to get everyone on board here.
I'm surprised that Jon wouldn't be more receptive to listening to Sansa. Like, just given everything that he's been through and seen, I wouldn't think that he would be
Stern.
So stern, and not that he was, disregarding what she was saying, but I didn't like how it was painted that Sansa saying, would it be so terrible if you listened to me? I wish that it wasn't just this immediate response of, so being smarter means listening to you, because she has insider knowledge for years of how King's Landing operated that he should listen to.
It's true, though. I was Team Jon with you shouldn't, if someone's going to be the leader, you can't be so boldly contradicting them in front of the other people.
Yeah.
So. But speaking of White Walkers, moving on a little further north, there's a giant cloud, and from it comes this White Walker army. And even though they're White Walkers, they are not walking. They're on their skeleton horses, which is nice. And also they have like White Walker zombie giants.
Yeah. That's not a good
in their
sign.
ranks. And a huge army, which is,
One of them looks like one.
It can't be, though. He died at Winterfell.
I know, but like
he's missing
one
an
of
eye.
them is missing
Do all
an
of them
eye.
really look the same?
They do not look the same. I'm just saying that one
I'm just
particular
kidding.
giant.
I know they really zoomed in on the eye too, and I was like,
one.
he died
Yeah.
by getting shot in the eye.
Yeah.
I was like, that's got to be like a throwback. But I also thought it was a throwback a bit to episode 1 of the entire series, which it's hard to remember all the way back. But the first thing you see when you watch Game of Thrones is the White Walkers.
Yes.
Is it?
Just to keep you, just
They
to
go out
remind
ranging.
you that this is really what's at stake.
I thought it was the 3 deserters of
Yep.
the Night's Watch.
They go out and they encounter the White Walkers.
That's right.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Which
I
is
felt
also
like,
how the book starts.
Yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
this was how, it's just that reminder of the stakes. It's always
Yeah.
that present danger that just no one seems to acknowledge.
Yeah.
Well, and then also at the wall, going on from there, Bran shows up with Mira, and they knock on the old wall gate, and our good pal Ed shows up. What's it, Dolorous Ed?
Yeah,
As he's known.
Dolorous Ed.
Opens the door, and that was a funny scene because Mira's like, I'm Mira. What's her name? She's from the house. Reed. I'm Mira Reed, and this is Bran Stark. And he's like, how do I know you're Bran Stark? And then he says some really creepy stuff, and he's like, yeah, you're a Stark. All right, let's go.
Yeah, it was a bit. Yeah, I mean, again, it's with this type of thing. I'm like, anything to get the plot moving that's like semi-believable, I'm cool with.
Yeah.
But even like, she dragged him so far. She's got to have like
She's
quad
ripped,
muscles,
like J.K. Simmons.
like J.K. Simmons. I was just
And
about to go
lats.
there. I was like, she's on the same training regiment.
One thing I think that is really noticeable if you watched old episodes and you watch now, Bran has really grown up. Like,
Oh, yeah.
he looks like a young man now. And Sansa
yeah.
and
Kit Harington. And
Arya.
yeah, they've all grown,
Arya,
but
yeah.
I think this was the one. I think this was the one that stood out the most
Speaking
for me.
of growing
I think
and,
it's
and
because-
Arya, just one quick canonical whatever question. When she puts on the face,
Yeah.
like, wouldn't she be visibly smaller than Walder Frey?
Well, I guess that's the power of the whatever they're called. I can't remember.
Like, you
right
can
now.
just, it's
The
just a pure
assassins.
deception.
Yeah.
It just
I
doesn't
think
look
so.
like a small girl wearing an old man's face.
That's
Yeah.
what I've decided. I've decided that
It, like,
if-
changes
if
your
he-
whole
if
kind of
she's
Well, it
able
changes your
to-
voice.
Everything, yeah?
If she's
Okay.
able to
It's
put on
magic.
someone's face,
There is magic.
Okay.
I'm just gonna go back to
Yeah,
about
yeah.
them looking older. I mean, Bran would be the most recognizable because admittedly, Sophie Turner was always tall, and Maisie Williams was always shorter. While so they didn't, they look older. If you go back to those episodes, they do look significantly younger than now. But I think Bran, the difference is that he was 6, right? Or no, he was 8, and now he's 16.
Wow.
So there is a difference.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Also worth noting at the Winterfell meeting, the free folk willingly are manning the castle on the wall. Not Castle Black, but the other one. Probably the one by the sea that we'll get to later.
Definitely the one by the sea. It has
Near
a name
Hardhome.
that I don't
Yeah.
that I don't know.
And so we'll get to that
That was
later,
cool. I loved, obviously.
And
it was awesome.
but Tormund and
And
Brienne
Well,
had
that
a
was
moment.
nice. But that was a funny moment where it was like you're waiting to hear what he was going to say to her next, but then it like cuts away and then she like storms off. But it was kind of funny to hear Tormund be like, how the times have changed from becoming the attacker to becoming the defender of the wall.
That's
so I
right.
thought that was super 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 neat, and also just kind of in the Winterfell part, obviously the connection between Sansa and Littlefinger is as creepy as ever, but she has zero patience for him right now, and one of the best lines in the entire thing. I don't know the quote offhand, but when she's like, I like don't even bother finishing. I'm sure it's just some.
Oh, I'm sure you
some
said
clever
something
thing
witty.
anyways.
Yeah,
Which was awesome. She really shut him down, put him in his place.
yeah. She's.
She said, "Don't bother chasing the last word. I'll
assume you said something clever.
assume you said something clever."
Yeah, but there was one line of dialogue in there that makes me suspicious, which is because you're always wondering really what Littlefinger's intentions are, right? And
Right.
Brienne comes up being like, "What does that guy want? Like, why is he still here?" And Sansa is sort of saying, "Well, he did save us."
Yeah,
And then she's like, "I know exactly what he wants." So
Yeah.
I'm like, there's still that mystery. Like, does she really know what he wants? Or is the show trying to kind of trick us into thinking, lull us into a sense of security that Sansa's on top of this and he's not deceiving her or something? I don't know. It's a bit of a gray area.
I think that with anything Littlefinger has done throughout the show, I think that he's seeking power, and if along the way he can have Sansa also, great. But if he doesn't get Sansa, the ultimate goal is still
I guess that's the question. Is the
throne.
ultimate goal more of
Yeah.
Sansa becoming, in a position of power and him kind of
Yeah, I don't know.
getting I don't know.
No, I think he wants it.
We got to keep moving along, though, if we want to stay on time. So we'll move on to King's Landing, where Cersei's having some
Some nice art commission.
floor murals done, I guess. And she's like standing on the middle of this map of Westeros that's being done. And Jaime comes in and is basically like, hey, remember how our son died and we don't even talk about it? Like our son Tormund just jumped out that window?
Yeah.
Or
Nobody
Tommen.
brought up Sir
Tommen.
Pounce.
Tommen.
Tormund, yes, sorry. Tormund is, anyway. And it's interesting, like, so Cersei's like, yes, there are enemies everywhere, but the world is ours for the taking, and I'm going to bring in Euron Greyjoy to chat, and Jaime's like, what?
Jaime's like, I'm pretty suspicious of this, but
Should I be afraid of you? He
yeah.
says at one point.
It's like, yeah, probably.
When she asks. I mean, at this point, Cersei's been through some bad things.
Yes.
And she is not messing around anymore. And
If you ever thought she was messing around,
yeah.
she's not.
No, she's definitely not. She's cold and calculating and, but
Backed into a corner.
it definitely.
Definitely.
Enemies everywhere. And I'm not going to repeat the ways she described the people that are coming at her, but Unkind words.
Yes.
And so then Euron does show up with the fleet. Now, here's the thing. He shows up with this really cool-looking fleet, well-decorated ships. But I was like, didn't Theon and Yara stole the Iron Fleet?
But then they built more.
And then they built more. And he was like, build me the best fleet and make them look hella cool.
Yeah, and he's like,
He had a
get me
little
a new
makeover.
wardrobe person
Yeah, that's
as
right.
well.
Yeah.
There's a great article that's like, then he found an Urban Outfitters from 5 years ago,
Yeah.
as well as like Jack Sparrow's eyeliner.
Yeah.
Well, I think he looks like, some lost boy band from a 90s group.
Yeah.
He looks like, the Lost
Like-
Boys.
Oasis.
Like
Yeah.
he was in one of those like indie pop bands or something like that. But
He was the one who he was in, most recently, we watched him in Ghost in the Shell.
yeah, he wasn't. He was the guy who lost his eyes. Yeah.
He could have just dressed like that.
Apparently, he's also in some sort of Danish version of The West Wing, and he looks much more handsome in that.
Oh.
But I think in this one, now the actor
Like Pilu
Yes.
Asbeck or something.
in between seasons, he was promising that there would be a hotter Euron this year, and I guess this is what we get. But I think he's also supposed to look creepy. He is creepy.
He's
but he
definitely
did
creepy.
have my favorite line of the episode, which is when Cersei said, "You killed your brother," and he said, "You should try it sometime. Feels great."
Yeah, he's definitely a bit of a loon, and I like that about him. Again, I like reading into what some of the people are saying, and obviously his parting words were, "I'm gonna go get you a gift." So in my mind, I'm racing through what bad thing does that mean, right? So what's his gift? Is that a Targaryen dragon's head on a pike?
I
Is
think
that
it's Tyrion.
Is that
Is
Tyrion?
it Tyrion? I think it's going to be Alaria Sand.
Oh.
Because they want to get rid of the sand snakes and all of them. Like, they're just weak characters at this point.
Yeah.
So I would say, on a plot perspective, that'd be. But probably it's Tyrion.
So I have a theory, and I don't know if we save that for later.
No, let's hear the theory. We'll
Yeah, might
just
as
go
well,
through.
while it's
Yeah.
on the
There's not
topic.
enough time. So.
Yeah, so my theory is that Jaime is going to kill Cersei in the end.
See, that's what I keep. That's like that would be like the good thing to happen, because he's really, that's what I wanted to say also in King's Landing, is he's consistently over the years becomes more 1 foot in, 1 foot out on the
Yeah.
whole, like, well, I guess he's always
He's
sort
always
of been
been.
1 foot in, 1 foot out, where you're like, you're a morally okay guy, but also pretty awful.
I think something that people forget is that he sacrificed his reputation.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he's called the Kingslayer for actually saving the entire city from the Mad King.
Isn't it Jamie such a fascinating character in the sense that on the one hand he's incestuous, child murdering, bravado, arrogance, and then on the other hand you feel for him. He's
Totally.
Yeah.
You know,
He's one of the good guys on the show, like morally on some side of the
Absolutely.
spectrum.
and I
Yeah.
can't either he or Cersei will be dead soon, probably by the end of the season. I think I can't see both of them making it.
No, I don't.
Maybe she does kill him.
It would be something. Now, remember the prophecy we were talking about. The prophecy of Cersei is that she will be killed by the hands of
The Lungcor.
which is the younger brother.
That's right.
Yeah, Valerian. So
Younger
Tyrion,
brother? Oh, Tyrion maybe again.
but also Jaime was
Jaime
born
also.
slightly after. There's a lot of theories because it could, it's Game of Thrones. It could be crypt.
Could be one of those, like, one stabs the other, stabs the other.
Yeah.
I think it's too easy for it to be Tyrion.
Mm.
It would mean
sure.
it would be the most satisfying.
Anyway,
But
So, yeah, fair.
moving on to crappy situations. Sam is in Old Town, slinging the poop.
For
best,
like a-
best montage
For like an
ever.
awesome, like, Edgar Wright style.
There's
compared to, like, Breaking
never
Bad.
Never been a better poop montage
I'm
in
waiting
all
for
of
the
TV history.
YouTube remix.
I look at my
Oh.
sister who's studying to become a nurse, and I'm like, this is what you have to look forward to.
Bedpans, man.
Yeah.
And he's in Old Town, working in the Citadel, trying to get access to that rare book collection.
Very Harry Potter of him.
I joked as I was watching it that, like, because basically he's working in the library, and then
Just
there's
go on
this
Wikipedia, man.
there's this one section that's sealed off, and he's like, I need in that section. And I joked that there's like a book cover you can see there, and it's like, How to Kill White Walkers in 3 Easy Steps, or something like that. It's like, I need that book. So there's a great scene where he is with Master... what's his name?
Archmaester.
Yeah, Archmaester Marwyn, who's played by Jim Broadbent, which was pretty
It was
cool.
amazing.
Very
yeah.
cool.
And was really well played. They're doing an anatomy. Wow, it's hard to say it like that. basically measuring the guts of this dead brother.
With a big liver.
Yeah, and it was interesting because Sam is like, yeah, I've seen White Walkers and no one believes me. He's like, oh yeah, I believe you. There's a lot of stories.
I believe you, but I just don't care.
Yeah, he's like, the world goes on, Everybody thought the world was going to end when the Targaryens were gone. Everybody thought the world was going to end when Robert's Rebellion happened. When the Long Night happened, they thought the world was end. But the wall stood through it all, and we're going to be fine, and everything's great. Clean this body up, I'll see you later.
Bye.
And that's when Sam was like, I got to steal that book. So he does. He goes, he steals the book.
Conveniently finds exactly what he's looking for.
And then they open it up and they're like, oh my God, there's Dragonstone under Dragonstone.
All of the answers are on one page.
Yeah. I was like, if you had to guess where all the Dragonstone
I guess it's Dragon
buried,
Glass, but yeah.
Or sorry, Dragon Glass. If you had to
the place
guess,
where there were dragons.
If you were like, we're so desperate, where should we look first?
Well, now here's maybe how Jorah gets healed.
How is that?
Because that's part of this Sam thing. Is obviously he's kind of wandering the halls, and then this creepy arm reaches out for him. And
where is the Queen of Dragons landed? And he's like, I don't know what.
Like, who the hell's that? And then you're like, oh,
it's Jorah.
It's
Stubble.
Jorah.
Yeah.
Well,
that
that's
gruff
how
voice.
Shireen. That's how
It was stopped.
her
Dragon Glass.
her dragon scale was stopped by dragon glass.
Grayscale.
Grayscale, not dragon scale.
Oh yeah.
It does make
Their
scales.
fates are intertwined. Still.
Well, ananyway.
Or he just like dies there.
Yeah, that would be something.
That would be so anticlimactic.
Anyway, it's an interesting place for Sam, and to see what the punishment will be for him.
Good metaphor for
he's sending
General University.
He's also driving the plot because he's sending a raven to Jon, and he's going to just moving well ahead. Who has landed at Dragonstone, which is abandoned? Dragonstone used to be Stannis Baratheon's castle. He's obviously dead, and there's a lot of empty castles, and nobody's bothering to fill them in.
Yeah.
So
It's just too much work.
Dany shows up and claims squatter rights
She does.
over Dragonstone. And this is near the end of the episode.
It's a
so
very
skipping ahead,
beautiful
but we'll
part of
go
the
back.
episode.
Yeah,
It's
they
very
land
moving, I
on
guess.
she touches the sand, and she's like, "It's colder here."
It's like, I was surprised she didn't like break out into like an old Irish
Yeah.
tune. A hymn. And she kind of wanted. It was cool because it's a location we've seen but haven't really seen.
Yeah,
That's
it's
right.
been a
It's
while.
always dark and dingy. You
Yeah.
never really get any scope. And then
And
here
you-
you get to see everything. The
and you get
throne.
close-ups.
Yeah, you get
Yeah.
the close-ups, but you get these massive vistas too, which, I mean, the show has come a long way from the beginning. The budgets are immense now.
Yes.
And so they can do some amazing things. Dragons flying over Dragonstone looked
Yeah.
awesome. Climbing those many stairs, awesome.
Was that still in Ireland, Dragonstone?
Actually, I don't know where they filmed
I don't
that.
know, but
I'll
it
take
was
a
a
look.
cool
It was very beautiful.
cliffside, right?
Very
Yeah.
beautiful. And
So-
it was cool just to see them go in. You see the dragons carved into the walls, and
That's
throne.
where she was. Where she
was born.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, she was born at sea in a storm, but still, that's why she's Daenerys Stormborn.
makes sense.
So yeah, she's there. She's set up shop. Clearly, she's going to sail a little bit south to meet up with Dorne and
get, like,
probably get to Highgarden, which would be, I guess, sort of northwest of them. I'm trying to remember that map. So
We should draw one on the floor.
Yeah,
inside
in CGSR.
We should just get a new table instead of this star one.
anyway, meanwhile, back to Arya, who's riding her horse when she hears Ed Sheeran singing a song
Yeah,
in an unfortunate cameo. Nobody's happy about this.
not a single person.
Now, a lot of singers and bands have had cameos in Game of Thrones, but I think they've all been more subtle than this one.
Absolutely.
I think maybe there was someone from like Mastodon, but
Yeah.
they blend it
Yeah.
right in with
There was
beards and stuff.
Coldplay and Snow Patrol
Yeah.
and
Monsters and Men.
Yeah. They've all been in there, but they blended in. And Ed Sheeran was just so front and center, and he had speaking parts that he was bad at. And,
Yeah.
he's a good singer, so that was nice. But it's just kind of like,
It felt like a weird, like almost like product placement
Yeah.
for like
Definitely.
Ed Sheeran.
it really
product.
broke with the, like,
And there
I'm
was
watching
also
this.
like a little inside joke of I haven't heard that song before, and him saying it's new.
It's new.
It's just too.
It was pretty cringeworthy.
It's from
Yeah.
my new album. And he holds
Which
it.
is unfortunate because the scene otherwise was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's
Like,
a cool
without
scene.
Ed Sheeran, because you don't see scenes where nice things happen.
Yep.
It was cool to just watch Arya be like so on guard.
Well,
You
and
know-
you're as an audience,
Yeah, of
you're
course.
on guard too, because you're like, oh, is this wine poisoned? Is this squirrel poisoned?
Yeah.
Are they gonna stab her?
Yeah, there's like all the swords. She's like scoping everything out, kind of planning how she's gonna murder all of these guys, and then they're like, "Here, eat first." My mother taught me it was,
Yeah, be nice to
good
strangers.
thing to do.
My
and
dad's on a boat and he's alone.
But I
I
think
want
it
to take
might
care
have
of my family.
I think it might have given her some perspective on that, sometimes in war, there's no such thing as the bad guys. Because to them, the other person is the bad guy,
I also
right?
think it was just a needed kind of reconnection with humanity that she clearly has lost with the ability to be able to put on someone else's face and then murder a room full of people very casually. And just like so coldly say, I'm going to murder the queen and totally mean it.
Yeah.
All
and
of that.
she's really gone through her kill list. Like, she made good work on that kill list.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know
she's
what's
doing
interesting about her kill list too, and we're gonna talk about them in a second, but like the guys riding around with the hound are also on it,
The
right?
Brotherhood Without Banners.
Yeah. So
Thoros of Myr and Dondarrion.
yeah,
Dondarrion,
they're both on the list. So, is she going to kill them eventually? She is, of course, on her way to King's Landing. To
Yeah.
She's
kill
going in
Cersei,
the opposite direction.
which is a hell of a mission. So
Yeah.
we'll see. And she thinks the hound is dead, so she's got that.
Maybe she kills Jaime to wear his face to kill his sister, so the prophecy does come true.
Wow, that would be
And that's
something.
very complicated. Yeah.
I wouldn't put it past it. But going back to the Ed Sheeran thing,
Yeah.
what really bothered me about it was when you watch the scene, it seems like a spotlight for Ed Sheeran.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they went out of their way to get Ed Sheeran in there.
Much
and
like
I
we're
was
giving
like,
him right now.
well, Game of Thrones doesn't need to do that. Like, it's a favor for Ed Sheeran to be on the show.
It
They're
was
helping him
also-
out.
Yeah.
It was also, it seems, a favor for Maisie Williams, who was a big fan.
Yeah, apparently she's. But still, like,
Yeah.
you know,
They didn't need to do it.
have him be in the background, and Maisie Williams can meet him offset or something like
Yeah.
that. It really breaks from the show, and it's too bad. And it's not like he's a talented actor. We'll see how Harry Styles
yeah.
is in Dunkirk.
Well, I guarantee he doesn't break out into song.
Yeah, it's from my new album. Anyway.
Dying during the Battle of Dunkirk.
Anyway.
That old one.
Continuity-wise, the soldiers seem to be there to secure the Riverlands, which I guess the Brotherhood of the Banner sort of did that before. And of course now there's problems because the Freys are all dead suddenly. And all they know about that is that winter has come and the North remembers.
Yeah.
So speaking of the North, the Hound and those guys we just talked about are all riding north. And they go back to that family house where Arya and the Hound...
This is where Game of Thrones really tests your memory. This
goodness.
is throwback
Well,
to,
they showed
to
it-
season 4.
They did show it in the previously on
That's
Game of
right.
Thrones.
But like I missed that part. So
They-
I was like
yeah.
struggling to
Yeah.
remember. I was like,
Now,
holy
Are
smokes.
they heading towards John? Is that the plan?
See,
Well, they're
are
headed to the north,
changing
but now-
direction, it seems, because I think this was another strong. I mean, the episode is super strong overall, but this was another really interesting part because the Hound's a very interesting character now. He's really kind of captures a lot of the best Game of Thrones characters because they're all so brutal and savage.
Absolutely.
But you can still have a heart, and he is like developed one
Yeah.
all of a sudden with the help of Ian McShane. And it was an interesting turn for his character. I mean, he's probably one of the funniest characters every time he's on
Yeah.
screen. Those lines he delivers, which I cannot repeat,
Yes.
are hilarious all the time. And he's just so savage, but you're also like, wow, it's going to be sad when you die one day.
Yeah.
He might not.
Kind of a
So
good character.
in this scene, they revisit a house that he and Arya had already stopped by,
Stole
and
silver
they
from.
stole the silver from, and the father and daughter have committed suicide, probably starving to death, and he feels a bit guilty about that. And this kind of his arc has been that he's a bit of a nihilist, but now he feels guilty about his nihilistic tendencies, which I think is kind of fascinating. And so in this scene, he's asked to look into the flames, and we know that the Hound has really bad history with fire. His face was burned as a child when Gregor shoved it into the fireplace when he stole a toy from him. And what he sees is that castle, which I think is called Eastwatch by the Sea, is being besieged by an army of thousands of White Walkers and the dead.
And that's where Tormund is
That's where
being
Tormund
sent.
is going, yeah.
Yeah, Eastwatch.
So that would be like the most badass meetup ever.
It would be pretty cool if
See
they
them
are
fighting
going
the
there.
Whites. If
Well,
they're all going to fight
and
the Whites,
the teaser for the
that'd be sick.
season when we saw Beric with the flaming sword would suggest to me that that is where they are going.
So away from
Mm-hmm.
the Clegane Bowl.
Yes, I don't think the Clegane Bowl is going to happen. But one of the prevailing theories right now is that the Hound is part of that prophecy from the Lord of Light. You know, the one about the prince who's to come.
Right.
You know the one I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do not know.
It's hold on. I will look.
So, Melisandre has always had a prophecy about the prince that will come, and at first she thought it was Stannis,
Yeah.
and then which is why she was staying with him for so long.
Azor Ahai.
Right. And is it the prince that was promised? That's it. And then Jon.
And he's
Yeah.
like, nah.
Here it is. According to prophecy, our champion will be reborn to wake dragons from stone and reforge the great sword Lightbringer that defeated the darkness those thousands of years ago. The old tales are true, a terrible weapon forged with a loving wife's heart. Part of me thinks man was well rid of it, but the great power requires great sacrifice. That much at least the Lord of Light is clear on.
It's interesting because, yeah, again, dialogue that kind of leads to more questions than answers, with him kind of questioning Dondarrion being like, what's so special about you? You're literally a nobody. This little girl should be alive and you should be dead.
A fair question.
Totally.
Brutal,
and he's like,
but fair.
He's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't get it either. But hey, I guess I'm probably here for a reason.
Yeah.
And that reason may very well be to connect with the Hound.
Yeah. So
Which is cool.
The prince that was promised is often connected to Azor Ahai because Azor Ahai was the guy who first made that sword, and part of how he had to make his sword was by stabbing his own wife in the heart. So the prince who was promised is who people think that the Hound is, that he's this reincarnation of Ahar Azai.
Interesting. That'd be a real turn for the guy.
Yeah.
Well, they think that because they think the Lord of Light is bringing Beric back all the time for the Hound.
Yeah.
Which would make a
their
lot of
fates
sense.
have been tied together for quite some time.
Yeah. We also learned that the Hound does not drink rum. It's too sweet.
Yeah.
And that they have rum in Westeros, I guess. All manner of booze.
Good things to know.
So that's I think we've pretty much come to grips with the episode.
Yeah.
I don't think we're missing anything. We only have
And everyone also knows where everyone's at, right? Like, there's no more questions about who's where, and everyone's very all-knowing. Like Cersei sent that angry letter to Jon.
Bend the knee, Jon Snow.
Give
and
up.
I was like, couldn't you send a raven back and be like, oh, we lost your letter right away. Could you send another one? It would take time. Also, with the snow, wouldn't you be worried the raven would die or something? I guess the ravens come back, and if it doesn't come back.
Yeah.
I also liked, just like a quick note also about Winterfell is because the game does change because winter has arrived, right?
Yeah.
Like, we haven't really seen what that means yet, but, I mean, people have been saying it so often. It's like, well, we know now, for one, no one's coming up north to fight.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be way too brutal for any army that's not from the north.
Yeah.
So they do have protection up there, right? So they're going to have to bring the fight south if that's where they want to go. So that was kind of an interesting development.
Yeah,
as
that
well.
was interesting. Matt, what were you going to ask?
I was just wondering what your thoughts and predictions are going forward. We've only got about 5 minutes left. We got to wrap this one up. So what are some I know you have tons of theories, Joyce.
Yeah, let's get
and we're
into
going to
it.
revisit every week, so we'll see how these things go.
So I mentioned the Jaime and Cersei one. I'm starting to toy with the idea that Bran, as the three-eyed raven, tried to connect with Aerys, who was the Mad King. And in that generation, there was also mention of White Walkers. And the Mad King was known to always hear whispers and always whispering, burn them all. So I think it was Bran trying to connect with him saying burn them all, as in the White Walkers.
Yeah.
I think we've talked about that maybe even before.
Well, I think it's popular that the whispers he's hearing are Bran, but the
Yeah.
burn them all thing, I'm not sure.
And it's very popular that I don't know.
So he drove him crazy.
Exactly.
Much
Yeah.
like Hodor.
That's what I think. Yeah, and I mean, of course, there's so many fan theories about how Bran is the original Bran, like Bran the Builder of the wall.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
That he actually built the wall.
He was the one that somehow Like when he gets older or through his abilities?
Through his abilities.
He instructed people to build the wall.
That's right. That's the going theory.
And knew how. Interesting.
Yeah.
What do you think? I don't know how far ahead we should prophesize, because I was wondering, like, do you expect the White Walkers will breach the wall this season?
I think we have to expect it with that flaming sword.
Yeah.
I think it's later. It will definitely happen later in the season.
I think it's season 9 or episode 6 out of 7, right?
Yes.
There's 7. Yeah, I think
That's
it'll
when
be the
we'll have
second last one.
Man, that'll be a sweet battle.
Yeah, because there's always a sweet. There's always. It seems like there has been escalating sweet battles with the Whites and the White Walkers. So I would love to see another one, because we obviously had Hard Home, which was one of the greatest episodes ever for Game of Thrones, and The Door I consider to be a pretty awesome White Walker episode as well. So let's bring on another.
Clearly, Jon Snow will be headed to Dragonstone to meet up with the Mother of Dragons,
who probably will not
Daenerys.
Be very welcoming.
Unlikely. She'll have to buy into the whole White Walker thing, and that's not really her agenda right now, especially when all her people are like, we should go. And if you watch the previews for the next one, her people are like, we should hit King's Landing right now, because they're really weak and we are really strong, which makes a lot of sense. I'm sure Jon Snow's going to show up and be like, hey, at the very least, do you mind if I mine all your dragon glass from this mountain? If he got that.
I mean, like, they can just fight their side of the war. Just let him mine.
Yeah.
I mean.
But he's also going to recruit.
They'll just stay out of each other's way.
So do you think we'll see that next episode, or they'll build to that? They've only got 7 episodes. So
I think this was the episode for building. Next episode, there's got to be action.
Yeah.
In some way, shape, or form.
I think next episode he'll get the note from Sam and start heading off. He has to.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. What else? Look, we mentioned what Euron's prize will be. Do you think it's I said I think it's Alaris Sand's head.
I know there's going to be dead dragons happening in this somehow, just to prove that Daenerys can't be all powerful and dragons are an all powerful weapon.
FYI, in the books, he claims to have a horn that controls dragons.
Who does?
Euron.
Well, interesting. Yeah. So I'm skeptical for the dragons making it through this season unscathed. And a dragon head would sure be, because he has that connection to them as well.
Right.
Because wants to go after his niece or his cousin?
His niece
and nephew.
And nephew.
He wants to go after them, and they're connected now to Daenerys. So.
I think that I think that the prize is Tyrion, but not Tyrion's head, but Tyrion alive for her to
yet
kill.
Another, and he's gonna be like trial by combat.
Yeah.
And he has to fight zombie Gregor.
Yeah.
I assume we all think Clegane Bowl is off. Not gonna happen.
I think
for now.
so.
Yeah. Which is fine. He can just keep intimidating people.
So we mentioned at the beginning of the podcast that I thought that Arya might be taking on Lady Stoneheart's storyline.
Give a 30-second.
Yes. So Lady Stoneheart is Catelyn Stark. Catelyn Stark's body was thrown into the river, and she was brought back by the Brotherhood Without Banners, and she starts going on a murderous, heartless rampage.
Vengeance, yeah. Killing
vengeance.
everybody,
That's
including
right.
Brienne being hanged at the end of an episode, at the end of the book. But we don't.
That's right. We never know what happened to Brienne at the end of the books, because she was hanging. She was in the process of hanging Brienne. Brienne shouts out a word which we all think is sword.
Yeah.
And then that's the end of the books of
Yes.
of Brienne and
that
Lady
happened
Stoneheart.
in A Feast of Crows.
That's right.
Now,
It's like the end of the pilot episode of American Gods.
fun fact though, about why George R.R. Martin wrote Lady Stoneheart like that. He wrote it in response to Tolkien's Gandalf. So Gandalf dies in theory as Gandalf the Grey and comes back as Gandalf the White, and he's a much nicer savior kind of figure. Whereas Martin imagined this death in the way that it happened to Catelyn to be, she would come back as cruel and vicious and vengeance at all costs and at everyone, including Brienne, who maybe in Stoneheart's eyes failed to protect her.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. I don't know if it would be that interesting to have Arya just be an ultimate Terminator, like killing
Well,
machine.
this is the thing about Arya, and another question is like, how long can Arya get away with this? Nobody gets away with just unmitigated damage in Game of Thrones. She's going to pay for this.
Yeah. She's not being very sneaky in her new assassin skills by having her face
Proclaiming.
shown.
Well, and to think about it, she's not a legendary assassin. She's like brand new to this.
That's true.
I know she's had
She needs
some
some
good
practice.
training and she's skilled naturally. Will we see Syrio Forel?
I'd love to see Ciro Farrell.
There are rumors.
There are
Yeah.
rumors.
Forel.
Oh, wow. Oh.
George R. R. Martin apparently he's saddened that Lady Stoneheart isn't in the stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah, well.
In the show, I mean.
Anyway.
Yeah.
He does love infinite murder and death. So.
Any other bold predictions before we move on? Anything for next episode that you think? Will we see? Will we finally pick up on the Sand Snakes and the last of the Tyrells?
I think that the Tyrells will start cutting off King's Landing from supply. I mean, they can quickly kill them by just cutting off their supplies.
Yes. Although if the Greyjoys have their fleet, that would
That's
give them an
true.
out. So
Yeah.
I don't know much about the logistics.
I'm in wait and see mode.
Yeah. Wait and see. The sea.
Also, Dragonstone was filmed in Ireland.
Oh, cool.
Great. There we go.
Yeah.
Fact.
There's their fact for the day. Well, that's our Game of Thrones premiere. Every week now, you'll catch us doing views from the 7 kingdoms.
Yes.
And I hope we cook up a sweet intro beat for that. Next week, probably Dunkirk. I think it's a given.
Yeah.
So thanks to CGSR and the Gateway and to Omar. And we'll see you then.
See everybody.
Bum.